This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. I'm Steve Gould, guys. Thank you for being here. Episode number 109. Behind this interview, there is a buttload of awesome content with the men and women of law enforcement telling you calls, unfiltered. They're not holding back. It's the real deal. And the idea is that you gain an appreciation for this job and what these men and women actually have to go through. This episode and all episodes are brought to you by the donators, the supporters, the backers of the show. I want to do a little shout out. I call it roll call. A little roll call for the people in my life. We don't share blood, but I love them. I'm in love with them. I'm talking about Adam Mihal, Alex Wazik, Andy Biggs, Brandon Hooker, the great Chris June, the great Gary Steiner, Jake Pinedo, John Shoemaker, Lane Campbell, Seth Wright, Tony Fahey, William James Long, that's Deputy William James Long to you, David Viveros, the great Sarah Pomeroy, Richard Zanuga, Thomas Connell, Luke Ervig, Corey Payne, Brandon Hooker, Lauren Stimson, Jacob Ruth, Rich Emery, Scott O'Donnell, and the great David Diaz. Thank you guys. You are awesome. They've made roll call. They give monthly. They support the show and what we're doing here, and it is so appreciated, guys. So before we get this interview going, I'm gonna quickly plug myself here. That didn't sound great. I'm gonna give a plug to the Patreon. I swear I will not plug myself on the show. So what happened is we set up the Patreon. I thought about it for a long time. There's two tiers you can do to support. There's patrolman or there's sergeant. With patrolman, you'll get videos of the interviews when they're available, when the officer's cool with it. And you'll also get a 3x3 vinyl sticker of the logo, which I think are really awesome. If you make sergeant's $10 a month, and you make roll call, you get the patron shout out. You can I will answer a question on the show, live on the show from you, a monthly live hangout, and then, of course, the video interviews and the vinyl stickers. So that's how you can support. The Patreon link will be in the show notes. It's what I'm doing now that's a little different. Before in the past, I had a bunch of people donating on PayPal. It was awesome, but I had no easy way to give them extra content or to reward them for supporting me for these last couple of years. So Patreon just enables me to do that. It's super easy to do. I can shoot a message out to everybody all at once. I communicate with everybody on there personally. It's awesome. With PayPal, it's like a bank. It just doesn't, even if you want to send an email, you have to cut and paste every single email from your followers into an email every time. So Patreon's just easier. If you're on the PayPal, you can stay there. It's fine. I appreciate it. I love you. If you want a little bit more, let me know. You can switch to Patreon, follow the link. Let me know. You can cancel the PayPal yourself, or I can do it. So that's kind of the direction of the show right now. I've spoken with a few sponsors, talking to one right now. Can't ever come to see. We can't agree on money, or I don't like the product, or it's not a good fit. So it's tough. If I could just be supported by the fans, that's like my dream, guys. So I'm going to keep reminding you that, not too much, but just enough that you want to give me your money. So that's what I have going on, guys. The episode today is going to be a fun one. This guy's got a lot. He's got a big resume. He's one of the guys. He has such a big resume that I wrote it down. That's the kind of guy he is. His name is John Kelly. He did 30 years Broward County Sheriff's Office. He's a retired sergeant. His past assignments include patrol, field training deputy, detective, canine handler, trainer. He was a motor sergeant, and while he was a motor sergeant, he worked closely with the Secret Service during dignitary visits, which sounds very interesting. Throughout his career, though, he did struggle with the typical demons that a lot of us police officers face: alcoholism, addiction, adultery, PTSD, thoughts of suicide, all that bad stuff. But now John has taken his life experiences, both the good and the bad, to develop a wellness leadership program for those still fighting the good fight. His program is a 4-hour motivational seminar that addresses a whole person, personal, professional, financial, physical, and mental health, which is awesome. I can't wait to hear about that. Besides that, John has a podcast himself, Sometimes Heroes Need Help podcast, and he has a book out just released, Surviving Self-Inflicted Wounds. So like I said, the guy's got a lot. And Broward County, he's got the stories. So without further ado, I want to bring on John Kelly. John, welcome to the show, brother.
Steve, man, great to see you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for coming. I'm honored to have you. I love having on fellow podcasters. You have the gear for good audio.
We try.
Yeah, it's funny. I say it all the time. Some of the best stories I get are from retired guys because number one, they don't care. It's over. They're not beholden to admin. Yeah. They're letting it rip. But one of the big things that happens is the technology thing is like, they're like, headphones. I got to have headphones. I'm like, yeah. And then the first 20 minutes of the show is me helping them, try to put it together. So when I see you got a microphone,
navigate these waters, man.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, you got the hang of it. Clearly you have a podcast, so you got it.
I'm trying, brother. I'm trying.
So Broward County, that's a pretty famous county. I mean, that's right up there with San Bernardino. I mean, it makes the news.
Yeah, it's famous really for all the wrong reasons, man.
Yeah.
Not a lot of great things come out of Broward. I think probably most notably is, back in the late 80s, that's where the birthplace of cops was.
Right.
The whole concept of putting TV crews in the cars with the officers and the deputies. That's kind of where that whole phenomenon kind of was born.
Well, the South is that's what I love about the South. They're fast and loose. I'm sure they went to like a bunch of Northeast and West Coast departments who were like, how about we follow the cops around with cameras? And they were like, hell no.
Yeah, they had enough sense to say no. It's Florida, man. Trial and error.
It's all in what you just said. Florida, man. Florida, man. Damn, man. Well, it's great to have you, man. And how long you been retired now?
I retired at the end of 2020, so about a year and a half, and actually moved out of Broward, oddly enough.
Good move.
I had my fill there. I spent probably 35 years there.
Wow.
And it was time. It was time to, pack up the wagon and move north.
Good for you.
So I'm in northern Florida, just around the St. Augustine area, still East Coast.
Yep.
But nicer area.
Beautiful. We actually, my wife and I looked at Florida a while back when we were thinking maybe we'll go somewhere else. And, we like the governor there and we like the politicians and stuff. And I had no idea that Florida I just think of like palm trees, sweltering heat, sunshine, freedom, but I don't,
yes.
There is some really cool old towns down there that they look, old school.
Listen, 35 years here. I had never been to St. Augustine. Like St. Augustine is the oldest city in the country.
Yeah.
I mean, and so you've got the fort there. You've got all that history. I grew up in Boston and, you want to talk about a city that's rich in history, right. Boston's definitely on the list. But I didn't even realize right here in my backyard, I had St. Augustine, and it's a pretty neat city.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I had some holes in my memory from history class when I started looking around that area, and I was like, a chapel from 1600? What?
Yeah.
Were we here? What's going on?
Yeah, I know. Going to start racking your brain trying to figure out, what the heck was going on.
That's awesome, man. So how do you get into standing up in front of a group of people? When you were a supervisor, at roll call, you get used to talking.
I had like the best OJT that you could ever have. All right, on the job training. When I ran the training division, I was kind of like the opening act, if you will.
Okay.
For in service. So I had a room of 30 cops, every day for years. And
worst audience, by the way.
Listen, as well as I do, man. If you can work that crowd, if you can stand in front of a group of cops and connect with them and get the message to them, any other audience you stand in front of is going to be a piece of cake. So yeah, I did that for quite a while, and then later on, I had some work with the Secret Service, and I'd brief, a group of 100 people
on
what we needed to do. So it was, obviously I don't have a problem talking. It's quite the opposite. I need to probably, shut up more. But so it was kind of built into the job, speaking in front of people.
Perfect. I mean, that's the best thing when a cop can take something from the job and then package it up for later. You see a lot of guys do that with like accident recon. They're like, I'm about to get out of this. I need to go work for an insurance company.
Yeah, there's so many, used to bust a guy's chops that, they were in economic crimes or whatever. And you were like, that's the most asinine, boring. But what they're thinking about is when I leave this place, I'm getting a job
corporate
making
world.
6 figures for American Express, and you go, oh.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, these guys are smart, man. They're putting it together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. You remind me of, I teach firearms instruction, and, I've done like a very small department, and, I might have had like in my past job, I maybe had 10 guys in the class, 12 guys, but like you give you give your blurb, and then you talk about case law and the importance of firearms training and all this stuff, all to like dead-eyed dudes. Once in a while you can bust their chops and laugh. And then at the end, it's always, do we have to go all day? Can we get out at
what time are we getting out of here?
Can we get out at lunch but get paid till 4? It's like, guys, stop busting my chops. No. But I was a patrolman doing it, so it was like I had no authority except that I was the firearms guy. So they were kind of like leaning on me, like, "Come on, let's get out of here.
You're one of us. Come on, man."
Exactly.
That's awesome.
All right, John. Let's get into it. I want to hear something about your career. Can you tell me about your first hot call, the first call that really got your heart going?
So, the first call, it's one I talk about in the book. I was about 2 months on the job, and I got called to a suspicious person selling narcotics. And I rolled up there, and I made a series of rookie mistakes. The tempo back in the early 90s in Northwest Fort Lauderdale was staggering. We would just call after call after call after call. So, by default, you kind of thought you knew what you were doing.
Sure.
When you had absolutely no idea what you were doing, right? Yeah. But you kind of got that false sense of security. So I rolled up. I canceled my backup, which was the first no. I saw the guy that was described, that the caller described, and he didn't flee. Normally, anytime we come rolling up anywhere, people scatter like cockroaches, right? So guy's not running. I'm not making any attempt to hide. I'm not trying to be sneaky. So I cancel my backup. He doesn't run. I'm thinking, all right, listen, this is nonsense. Let me just clear this call and let me go, because, we're backed up. Let me go help the next guy on that call.
What was the initial call, John?
It was just a suspicious guy selling narcotics.
Okay.
So, which a call that I have handled in my 2 months 100 times, right? I mean, this was not, there's no anxiety. There was no threat perceived. And then I made the third mistake. I had him throw his hands up on the wall. I think I must have seen that from like One Adam 12 or some TV show, right? And so, long story short, man, he spins off the wall and he tags me, and he knocks me on my butt, and I'm just like, what the hell just happened? Yeah. And then I'm thinking, well, he's going to flee, right? He doesn't flee. He pushes the fight. Ooh. And it got nutty real quick. He was reaching for something over a fence. I dragged him over the fence, back on my side. He grabs my gun, and now we're fighting over my gun. I'm on the ground, and I reached for a little 5-shot. I had a little 5-shot on my ankle because I'm getting ready to tattoo this guy. And my 5-shot's in the dirt. It's out of reach. It's like everything that could go wrong is going wrong. And people think that like cops you can fight forever because you're a cop.
Yeah, you get gassed quick.
I'm a minute into it, and I'm telling you that tank, I'm running on fumes, and it happened really quick. And I started smashing the guy in the face trying to get him off my gun. And to do that, he finally got off my gun. And at that point, he started running. So now I'm chasing him through a housing project. I tackle him, and I get my handcuffs out, and I put them around my fists like a pair of brass knuckles.
Yeah.
And I just start going to town on his head. But the problem is everybody in the housing project didn't see the last 5 minutes.
Whole thing when he cold cocked you.
So now they're like, there's this white cop, beating the crap out of this black guy.
Right.
And it's just like, it is just all bad, man. A crowd's forming around me. And throughout this whole thing, I got one transmission out, which was, I think I was Charlie 205. And I say, hey, 205, 1024, which is, trouble, send help.
Yep.
And when that call went out, the dispatcher recorded the time. She was like, at 13:30 hours. And, that's not the response that you should get from a dispatcher when you're screaming for help, And then one of my zone partners got on the radio and was like, hey, I think that was Charlie 20. I think that was 205, 1024. Can you check on him? And they couldn't raise me because, I'm in the middle of it.
Right.
And so, the call went out across all channels that they had somebody that needed help.
Damn.
And, yeah, man. And that was like 2 months on the job. The happy ending was the cavalry arrived, before somebody put one in the back of my head from the crowd, or before the bad guy, got the upper hand. And that set the stage for like a lot of life lessons, moving forward.
Yeah. How did that, that must have really changed how you operated after that.
Oh, and I had guys on my squad like grab me like by the scruff of my neck and go, if you ever do that again, we'll kill you. It was like, because, I didn't quite yet connect the dots that one, this is the real deal, that people that don't know you will kill you in a heartbeat.
Right.
And that when you don't make good decisions, you put everybody else's safety in jeopardy trying to get to you.
Yeah.
Right. Because they're jumping medians, they're running northbound in the southbound lanes. They're putting their safety at risk to get to me. And if the reason why they have to do that is because of my stupidity,
not
as
cool.
as my Latin friends would say, that's no bueno.
Yeah, no bueno, exactly. Yeah,
no bueno.
That's a thing with young cops though, is like the tombstone courage. They're just, they haven't had their bell rung or whatever, so they're just kind of like, let's do this.
Yeah, no, hey, listen, it's just I'm so fortunate that it happened early on in my career because, I connected the dots pretty quick after that when it came to how I needed to be with my interactions, and, taking physical fitness to a new level, taking my, officer safety to a new level. So yeah, I'm really blessed that happened. There are guys that have gone their whole career that have just been lucky.
Yeah.
And lucky doesn't work, man.
Yeah. We've all seen that on they show it in police academy and stuff when a cop is just, puts his hands right in the door frame, or he's on the job 30 years, or he just saunters up and the guy gets out and just bashes it. And then the guy's beating the guy's limp body. It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. No, it's I was lucky, but I realized that that's probably not the way moving forward that I want to be. I don't want to be relying on luck.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, thank goodness it was just a wake up call. And I used to work with bigger guys, and they were well aware. They'd been in fights and stuff, and they were like you were saying, they would tell me, I got 30 seconds in the gas tank. Yeah. They knew that. Yeah. They knew that, and they could fight. They said, I know how to fight, but I got 30 seconds. And then I know after that, my arms are going to be like lead. My knees are going to be buckling. I'm like, that is not a good way to feel when you got somebody who's, jacked up on something.
Right.
And they're like superhuman,
Yeah. Which, it's funny. So after that, I take that with me through my career, and I'm in the training division. And so our mantra was swift, violent, decisive action.
Yeah.
With the realization that you don't have all day to end this.
Right. Yeah.
End it quickly, end it quickly. So
absolutely. I remember working with guys when I was getting broken in and watching the guys that were good. They would, when it's time to take somebody, it's time to take them. It's like talking is over. It's not like you're going to, because you have guys that try to use their, like, hey, my gift is my mouth. And they keep going. And it's like, now he's thinking you're a weakling because you're like, he's already done something to you. You could arrest him, but you're not. You think you're going to, and watching these guys, senior guys come in and they move fast. Boom. Right. So you hit them hard and then they know, okay. But if you kind of just like impishly grab or whatever, they go, it's like the watering hole, the lion and the hyenas. They're like.
And that's the problem we have right now, Steve. Guys are so afraid to do the job. They're so afraid to put hands on somebody.
Yeah.
Their indecisiveness actually, it doesn't de-escalate. It empowers the bad guy to go to the next level. And now they're playing catch up because they were worried about the optics of them, doing what they needed to do. It's a crazy cycle that we're in right now.
Yeah, it's bad. My dad was a cop for like 32 years, and he said he's like, I wouldn't be doing it, Steve. I'm glad I'm out. He's like, the fact that you got 15 left is like, to him is crazy. But it's like, the guys in the bigger cities too, where they're doing a lot of hands-on stuff, and they're getting younger guys that are kind of squeamish with that. Well, they're seeing peers, even in states like Texas and Tennessee, they're seeing their peers get dragged through the papers, brought to trial. They're talking about getting rid of immunity, qualified immunity. And why wouldn't he be indecisive? Like he's afraid. He's afraid something's going to happen to him. He's going to get sued, or even if they end out okay in the end, it was 8 months of hell. And, there's
a problem when we're more afraid of the politicians than the armed suspects.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. I mean, the thing I don't understand about the qualified immunity thing is like, it's self-explanatory. It's qualified. It is approved by the court.
It's not a blanket hall pass.
It's not immunity.
You can do whatever you want.
Right.
Yes.
It's qualified by legal experts, award it to you so that you can do your job. But it's, we can't get into it. We'll go nuts. But
no, we won't. But yeah, that was like my introduction, brother.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like a good one, man. And you were probably a young buck, pretty in good shape.
24.
Yeah.
But, but I was always kind of light back in the day, before I discovered steroids.
Yeah, you look like a linebacker now.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm about 50 pounds heavier than I was back then. But that was a good wake up call.
John, can you describe a bizarre or like crazy thing you dealt with? I know bizarre is Florida's middle name. So
you know what? When we started talking, I was like, how do I filter through all the nonsense?
Right.
Because what ends up happening, Steve, is every night becomes bizarre. There's always I don't know if people in the neighborhood are trying to one up each other with the ridiculousness, but it doesn't. There's never a shortage. There was one call that sticks in my mind because one of my guys actually drew like a caricature of me in my patrol car. Kind of memorializing the incident.
Yeah, I love that. It's great.
And so I didn't even know he had this talent, but it's pretty funny. We got called to a break-in, a burglary in progress, and as units arrived, the suspects were wheeling the floor safe out of the convenience store in a shopping cart to a van.
Nice.
And so it's just like, come on.
It's like a movie.
Come on. So the van's stolen, they're about 4 or 5 deep in the van, and they're not stopping for anybody. And we're chasing this van down I-95. And from the van, they start throwing things at us. Like, whatever was in the van that they stole made its way onto our cars and I-95 South. They were hurling cinder blocks. They were bales of wire. there was like flower pots. It was like a cartoon at one point, and they actually took out a couple cars,
wow.
by the grace of God,
effective.
By the grace of God, somebody didn't catch a cinder block through their windshield. But they took out like a couple cars. So, as the longer this goes on, the more bizarre it gets, and the helicopter's up, and we're going down into an area called Miami Gardens. And there's one other place you don't want to live, and that's Miami Gardens. So we're following this van down to Miami Gardens, and it's never ending. And now we're doing circles. So we're circling the block. So that's a really good indication that, the boys are looking to bail, that they're home.
Right.
So oddly enough, they rammed my patrol car.
Oof.
How good God, the nerve of them. So they rammed my patrol car, and I continued with that thought, putting their van into a side of the house on a corner. And that ended the pursuit.
Nice.
And K9 and the helicopter and everything else ended up getting, I think, 2 of the 4. And then one of the last suspects ended up getting killed a week later in that neighborhood. And the funny thing, I always laugh, is because he would have been safer if he had gotten arrested by us.
Right. We're here to save you.
It was just, you're safer with us than you are in the neighborhood. And but yeah, one of my guys drew up this whole caricature with all these things bouncing off my car, and my car completely destroyed. It was pretty funny.
That's awesome. That is like, that seems to be nationally a thing with cops. Like in this area I work, there's a guy that draws up like memes of officers. If something happens, hears it on the radio, and it gets around. It's kind of like,
that's funny.
Just like a ball busting type of thing. Or you come into work and there's, your head is glued to the body of some cartoon character. It's all over the station. You're like, what?
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's just. Or if you crash your car, the first they laugh at you, and the last thing they ask is, "Oh, is he all right?"
Yeah. That's definitely an afterthought, right?
Absolutely. Well, that's crazy, man. I mean, that's you have to imagine, like, what were they thinking? If they went far enough to like, no, there's a safe in there, and let's do X, Y, and Z to get it, but then they're planning to execute. Just
well, again, we're not talking about the vanguards of intelligence here.
Right.
I mean, it's
not Ocean's 11.
No, man, there wasn't. I'm pretty sure there wasn't a briefing, and they didn't
a whiteboard,
have a whiteboard with the schematics of the alarm system.
Right.
Too funny.
That's awesome. I wonder if they had that van, like, was it intentionally stocked with items to toss at you guys?
You know what? I'd be impressed if that was actually the thought. I think it just worked out the way it worked out.
You're right. There's no forethought here. Yeah.
No, man. But it was bizarre, man. It was bizarre.
Oh, that's crazy. That's funny. John, can you tell us about your most intense or terrifying call that you went on?
Terrifying. It's funny. So there've been 3 attempts on my life, right, over my 30-year career.
Wow.
But they all, the varying degrees of, discomfort. But the one call that really kind of messed me up didn't involve me. It involved a call to an apartment where there was a baby screaming. And, I talk about this in the book as well. Got dispatched to a call, neighbors called. They were this screaming coming, baby screaming coming from an apartment. And so, I get the call, I head over there, and, upon my arrival, it's not a baby screaming call. I'm thinking, you know what, tell the kid to simmer down, again, let me just, go about my way, right? It's another bullshit call and I get there, and the father opens the door, and he's sweating profusely. And I'm like, And so I make my way in there and I see the kid. It's a baby. And the long and the short of it is he was beating the kid with an extension cord.
Oh,
this little baby.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, man. And I was like, I did a double take and then like a triple take because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Like beating this baby to death.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, to the point where he worked up a sweat.
How old was the kid?
It was a baby. He was an infant.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And, you know, I lost it. I had a partner make sure I didn't cross the line and got me out of there before I got myself into some trouble. And, but I got to tell you, you know, he went to jail. You know, the baby went to the hospital and I sat in my car and cried. I mean,
yeah.
it messed with me for a really long time. And all the other things that happened over the course of my career kind of paled in comparison. You know, I had the hardest time dealing with that and trying to figure out, you know, how I close my eyes without seeing and hearing that kid.
Yeah.
And again, I'm 24, 25. I mean, I don't know anything, man. I've never been exposed to this kind of brutality before, you know?
Right.
So I would say that of all the things that I experienced, that's definitely one of them.
Jeez.
You know, having to pick up bodies and stuff and then having the skin come off in your hands, you know, those are times that, you know, you're like, wow, that was real shitty. You know, I don't want to do that again.
Yeah. That's up there for me. Seeing the human body in unnatural contortions or unnatural condition is like, that's my thing on the job. That like, I know no one likes it, but it really, like the next morning I wake up, it's the first thing I see. It's like, I got to process that. I got to get that out of me, you know?
Sure. I tell you, I don't know how, like our crime scene guys.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, you know, that armor that we put up, that sixth sense of humor, you know, that can only take you so far, man.
Yeah.
You know, the
black humor. Yeah.
Yeah, that can only take you so far. I mean, I interviewed a guy. He was the sergeant of the crime scene unit for the Broward County Sheriff's Office, and he was in charge of the crime scene at the Marjorie Stoneham Douglas High School mass shooting incident.
Oof.
Right. And my buddy, Zach Scott's a homicide detective. He was responsible for establishing the timeline and being a liaison for all the families.
Oh my gosh.
Listen, yeah, no.
It traumatizes me hearing about it.
Steve, I cry when I talk to these guys. One, I know them. And this whole, you know, mantra, well, it's your job and blah. Nobody
signs up for that.
Nobody's job to be stepping over 17 dead bodies and talking to their families and being immersed in that horror for years.
Yeah.
You know, so like my stuff is, you know, piddly stuff compared to the trauma that they're experiencing. You know, it's just, everything's relative, right? I guess that's probably the best way to look at it.
I had a past guest describe it as he was a Marine and was overseas, and then he came home and became a cop in an Englewood cop and in California, which is not a nice place. But he said it's like it started to get to him because it's like it's never goes away. He goes like when you're a soldier and you come home, time to heal type of thing, they still struggle. He said, when you're a soldier, you come home and then you become a cop. And then every night at dinner, you know, the next day the war is still on and you're going to see the same stuff. He's like, there's no reprieve, and it's cumulative. Like a career like yours, it just stacks and stacks and stacks. It's like a poison in your blood. It's just like, and if you don't have the right tools to get rid of that stuff, or you feel embarrassed, or there's, you know, especially back in the day, there was a lot of that shame. It was like there was an 800 number on the side on a poster. Hey, you got some feelings? Call that number. They'll help you out. You know?
Yeah. God forbid, if you shed a tear, things are changing a little bit. I think we're becoming a little more aware.
Yeah.
But back in the day, you better suck it up, man.
Yeah.
Because it ain't going to get any easier. And that's, knowing what we know now, that's not the best advice to deal with the trauma that you're exposed to. Suck it up. It's just.
The old timers when I came on,
yeah.
It was booze. Booze was the answer.
Yay for booze.
Choir
yes.
practice. It was just like, stuff that down, baby. Just.
Oh, man. Right. Well, you know what? I mean, you either develop healthy coping skills or not. And you know what? If the group norm is to get hammered off duty, then that's what you do.
Right.
You
That's
get hammered.
The camaraderie. Yeah. And some guys are fine with it. They're doing it because they just like to have a few beers. But there's, 1 in 3 guys in there are not doing it for that reason. They're upset.
Very true. Very true.
You were saying about your friends who process those scenes. I had Alina Burrows on the show. She's the host of Crime Scene Confidential and Discovery Plus.
Oh, wow.
And she did the Casey Anthony stuff. Like her mind, like the way she works, and she's talking about these scenes, and she helped process after the fact the Pulse nightclub shooting and kind of submerged in that gore. And she was saying like, it's just, I always thought it was interesting, and the human body never bothered me. And she goes, I never thought you would tell me I would be degloving somebody so I could wear their hand for evidence purposes. I'm like, wow, that might be the most disturbing and horrible thing. I couldn't do it. First of all, I couldn't even deglove somebody without barfing. But she takes she did it for evidentiary.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my, that's what you did for your job all the time.
Yeah.
No, I can't.
Yeah. I can't help but think that at some point when everything slows down and our mind's not racing, that, I pray that she doesn't have any,
maybe she is the healthiest program
maybe,
on the side.
man,
I don't know.
I hope so, right? I hope so. I wish her nothing but the best, but yeah, not this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even like hearing her stories. I was like, whoa.
Oh
geez.
my God. I know. It's just,
So how did,
what it is.
In your career, now you speak to this stuff now, but in your career, when did you, now that you have hindsight, when did it start to accumulate? When did you start to kind of slip?
We do a horrible job. So alcohol is legal, right?
Hell yes.
So we turn a blind, do you have a problem with drinking? No. Okay, next question.
No, I love it.
Yeah. So I'm an Irish kid from Boston. My dad's an alcoholic. It's kind of like a rite of passage, man.
Right.
That's just the way it was. And, military college, more drinking. And now I moved to South Florida and I'm a cop.
Oh yeah.
I've got a license to do whatever I want. And when it comes to drinking,
it's on.
It would be easier for me to tell you the times that I was sober driving.
Right.
Than the times that I was not.
It used to be a package deal too, from hearing guys talk that are retired now. It was like, that was just one of the things. It was like a perk of the job. Like you could drink and drive. It was just kind of like, hey, the job's tough. We're letting off some steam. We're not going to bust each other's chops for that. I mean, those days are over.
You're right, Steve. Nobody was locking each other up for drinking it. I mean, God forbid, unless you waffled somebody.
Right. If they had to.
Then you force their hand. But it was like, all right, we'll get home safe. Oh, okay. Yeah, thanks.
I'll say a prayer for you.
Right. Or if they were really bad, you'd throw them in your car and you'd give them a ride home.
Right.
I did that many a night. I said, yeah, dude, I don't feel comfortable with you driving. I'm going to give you a ride. Hop in. And, we'll come back tomorrow and get your car. No worries, But so that, I didn't need an excuse to drink. So that, this is the other thing, Steve. I don't like blaming. I think when we blame things that happen to us for the way we are, I think that's the beginning of us not taking control of the situation.
Interesting.
We always have a say in how we handle stuff.
Right.
We don't have a say in what happens to us sometimes, but often the situations that we get ourselves into, we create.
Yeah, you're right. Because if you say that, then how are you ever going to fix it if you're not in control?
You can't. I'm powerless. No, you're not. Actually, the reason why you're in the position that you're in is because of some really shitty decisions you've made.
Right. Take some ownership.
Yeah, man. If you take ownership, you'd be amazed at what you can accomplish. But I think we've gotten way too comfortable as a people and a society and a profession to point the finger, because if I can say it's all Steve Gould's fault, then I don't have to do anything.
Why wouldn't you?
It's your fault, not mine. And that doesn't get us unstuck. That never improves the quality of our life. So, all these failures, everything that I failed in life at, I was the reason for the failure.
Right.
And so, did I always know that? Did I always recognize that? Did I always take ownership? No. But if you ever want to get better, you got to own it.
Yeah.
You got to own it, because then when you own it, then the power rests within you. But to get to that place, sometimes, some people, it takes a little longer than others. And certainly over my 30-year career, I had fallen into many holes, and the quickest way to get out of those holes was to own the reason why I was there, which was me.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a Christian, and that's part of the Christian worldview is you have a realization that it's my fault. Like I'm the sinner. I'm the one sinning, Right.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I refer back to, not only in my life, but when I speak, the Serenity Prayer. Right? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Yeah, I love it.
I mean, it doesn't get any easier than that. Living that way takes some effort.
No one said it'd be easy.
No, but it's a very, I think, empowering philosophy if you want to have and add value to your life. It starts with you knowing what you have control over, and then, being courageous enough to tackle those challenges.
Absolutely. So John, when your kind of story arc through your career, when did, so things got bad and then they got good towards the end. So you were towards the end, were you kind of, did you find a program like you're doing now, or what kind of spurred you to clean up your act, let's say?
So it's amazing. I talk about in my program the importance of caring, the importance of having people in your life that care, the importance of you being that person for somebody else. And so throughout this journey, this arc, when I showed up to work drunk in full uniform,
Oof.
Cardinal sin. I had deputies covering my calls, handling my calls while I slept at a buddy's house. And that ruse lasted all to about 4 a.m. until the sergeant wanted to see me. But they're caring. They brought me in and they said, this will never be allowed to happen again. So you either get help or we're going to command refer you. Those two sergeants cared.
Yeah.
They could have locked me up.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of bosses that would have, and they would not have been wrong to do that. So through my alcoholism, the caring of others, through my infidelity, the caring of my wife, which is, you'd be like, wait a minute, your wife? Yeah. she took some responsibility for our marriage, for our relationship. It wasn't 50-50.
Right.
We weren't assigning blame. I said, this is on me. I stepped out.
Sure.
I created this problem, but she was woman enough to go, you know what? If I'm in a marriage with you, then there's some culpability on my part. It may not be 50-50, but maybe I'm responsible 1%. So I have work to do in our marriage to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Wow. What wisdom she has, you know?
An amazing woman, Steve. And quite frankly, during that time in my life, that's when that suicidal ideation was rearing its ugly head. I had this addiction to steroids, and I was off the rails.
Wow.
Completely out of control. And if it's not for the caring of others, you're talking about that arc. If it's not for the caring of others, the slide turns into an avalanche.
Yeah.
You follow me?
Yep.
And the caring of others keeps it from becoming that. And it was that realization that, one, you can't handle trying to handle life on your own, the things that it throws at you is, I think it's setting yourself up for failure. That, one, we don't need to do that. And two, when we start chasing perfection, I think we set ourselves up for failure. And having people in your life and being that person for others is, I think, where we need to be. When you can care about somebody, and I know it says that you don't have to like somebody, but when you can care about somebody, care about their well-being, care that you want to see them happy and fulfilled and have a good life and a good family, I think that's the key to winning this thing, man. I really do.
Yeah, it makes sense. Absolutely. Wow, man. It sounds like you were blessed through that whole thing.
Very much so.
Incredible story. Can you tell us a positive encounter from your career?
So I'm going to say post-career, if that's okay, Steve.
Absolutely. Hey, some guys don't have any, so I'll take what I can get.
Yeah. So, you mentioned the program I developed.
Mm-hmm.
It's about empowering and helping guys through these critical stages in life. And I had somebody come to me and they said, you did your 30 so you could you could be there for us. And that I've had guys call me, text me after a presentation.
Sure.
And just say, not thank you, but like, I took action because of what you said. I called my ex-wife and I apologized to her. I recommitted myself to my marriage. I stopped, screwing around on my wife. I redefined the importance of family. I started getting my finances in order. I started taking better care of myself. I went and spoke to a therapist because I've been having problems with, PTSD or alcoholism. So the positive feedback that I've been getting has been from our brothers and sisters that are taking action to add value to their own lives. They're starting to take responsibility for where they are. And
that's got to feel great, man.
Feel great, Steve. Steve, I am on a high like no drug could ever provide. I'm so blessed and humbled that I'm having the opportunity, right, to have this impact because, I'm nobody, brother. I'm just a guy who had some stuff go on during his life that a lot of us have. We all have stories. We all have issues. I think the big difference is that I'm okay talking about it, and through that, there's a real sincere hope to normalize some really difficult conversations that we have been avoiding for years. And I think through that, I think there's hope.
Absolutely.
That we can start, we can change the culture, and we can start just being better humans, right? Just being better people here on this earth.
Absolutely.
And I know that sounds lofty and a little, I don't know, a little hokey, man, but I'm 55 now, brother, and there is an end date. There is an expiration date.
Yeah.
You know, the sands in the hourglass they're not slowing down. And so, you know, I think that it's incumbent upon us to leave this place, you know, better than we found it. And then I think the way we do that is by connecting with people and adding value to their lives.
Absolutely, John. Well said. I mean, and I tell you, I love a good TED Talk, you know, like a subject that I like, and always find the most impactful speakers walk the walk. The fact that you fell from grace and climbed back up, that's part of the hope you have that you share. Nobody wants to hear somebody with a doctorate tell you all about it, and then you go, yeah, this guy, you know, what does he know? He never did a second of time on the street. Like, his life is peaceful. You know, he's got a corduroy vest with patches on the elbows. You know, he's smoking a pipe. He's having a good time.
He's got a pipe and patches on his elbows.
Right. His wife brings him a nice cognac, whatever those guys drink. But
my goodness.
No, John, it's really cool, man. The program it just sounds so great. And it, how do people, if someone wants you to, like, go to their department and do it, like, or a corporation or whatever, wherever else.
Yeah. I've been speaking. I spoke last month for the FBI.
Nice.
I present. Yeah, it was
that's
really
a nice feather in the cap for the resume.
It really, I was humbled. I got to speak to a bunch of bosses, all from around the state of Florida, at the FBI Executive Development Seminar.
Very cool.
And, you know, I got to talk to the decision makers and give them some insight on some of the importance of the environment that they're creating for their people and all that. My website's probably the easiest way, lawenforcementlifecoach.com. And I have links to the podcast and a video of a clip from a presentation. And
we'll link that right in the show notes so people can just click and go right to your website.
Stuff. Yeah. But that's how that, and Steve, quite frankly, it's word of mouth, man. It's just me putting on the program for different agencies and organizations, and somebody walking away from that saying, we should get him to come to our agency.
That's cool. I mean, are you willing to travel? Would you go to Canada, England, or Australia, anything like that?
Oh God, I travel all over.
That's the three biggest countries besides the U.S. for this show is Canada, UK, and Australia, English speaking. Oh, yeah. But
absolutely, yeah. I actually, not that it's super far away, but September I'm traveling to Iowa. I'm speaking at I'm the keynote speaker at a law enforcement wellness conference, first responder wellness conference.
Nice. You would be a little bit nervous. I would be like, oh, baby.
You know what, Steve? I love, you alluded to it. Like, I'm telling a story of my life. You know, there aren't cue cards.
You lived it. You don't need to remember. Yeah. Right.
It's me having a conversation with 200 people and talking about something that I'm really passionate about. So it's an easy conversation to have. And initially, I wasn't sure if it would resonate with people. You know, it's a tough crowd, man. It's a tough crowd. But
I'm sure you had the moment when you put it all together, and like we all do when you do something creative, and then you look at it and you go, "Is anybody even going to care about this?"
You know what?
You get nervous.
You're so funny. I initially, when I started, I've taught or presented probably close to 30 sessions.
Nice.
To date. And in the early days, I was just like, why would anybody pay to hear me speak? What do I bring to the table? Who am I? Right. I'm not a Navy SEAL. You know, I'm not some badass that killed, bin Laden. I'm just John, who's fallen more times than I care to remember, And
also, in our community, 30 years of Broward County is pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you that, right? It's not an easy place to survive, both internally and externally.
Sure.
But I think people, at their core, want to be able to relate to the person speaking to them. I don't have anything in common with the Navy SEAL that killed bin Laden.
Right.
But I do have a lot of things in common with somebody that struggled and fought and had issues throughout the course of their lives. And I think probably the people that hear me, I think they probably draw a parallel, like some of the things that I talk about, they can see in their own lives.
Sure.
And it's not just about talking about problems, right? Because you and I can both identify, give us a topic and you and I can point to the problem.
Well, it's good for anybody though, because they could go to their call the day after your seminar.
Right.
You know what I mean? They don't know. Yeah. You don't know when you're going to go to that call and then
you don't
pop an O-ring,
Right. And the importance of it is that not only do I discuss problems, but I offer up solutions, like real world
things that work.
John to Steve solutions that are going to work for you because they've been tried. They've been put into practice.
Right.
It's not some theory based in academia. It's based on living the life. And so I think that's another part of the program, why it's been successful.
Yeah, it sounds awesome, man. I've kept you here almost an hour, John. I got one more question. You got time?
Yeah.
All right. So this one's real popular because there's a lot of prospective police officers, people in the midst of a background investigation. Maybe they just got out of academy. Some advice for the new recruit or the young officer coming on the job.
Don't ever lose the sense of who you are. I've been John Kelly a hell of a lot longer than I've been Deputy Kelly or Sergeant Kelly, and I think sometimes we have a tendency to go all in. And we think that by being all in, that's going to make us better at being a police officer or a deputy. And I think what ends up happening is we lose sight of the big picture, which this is a calling and a passion, but it's a means to an end. And so I think there's an importance of not losing yourself in this profession, that know who you are, know your moral compass, keep the friends that you had before you became a cop. Because when you stop becoming a cop, the phone may not ring quite as often.
You're out of the game.
And I think it's important to have balance and to be committed to self-care. That nobody else, you're nobody's priority. You need to make yourself a priority. So don't lose yourself, don't lose your way, and intentionally make yourself a priority in your physical and mental health. You've got to do it for you. Nobody else is going to do it for you.
Words of wisdom. I agree with that totally. And what you said there too about keeping normal friends, not normal, but non-law enforcement. A lot of guys and gals say that on here. It's so important. Not like you said, you go all in, you purge your other friends, and it's just cop cookouts, cop hangouts, cop bars, cop choir practice. But then when you're out or you get injured or you retire, you have nothing. Because it's that whole lifestyle disappears. Well, John, thank you so much for coming on, man. It was an absolute pleasure and honor to have you on. We're going to link your website and your podcast, Sometime Heroes Need Help podcast, and your book, Surviving Self-Inflicted Wounds. All be linked, and we'll put your website up so people can find you. It was a pleasure, man. Thank you for coming on.
Steve, the pleasure was all mine, man. Thank you so very much.
Thanks, brother. I'm going to close the show out and just throw you in the green room. Can you hang out for a sec?
Most certainly.
All right, guys, episode 109. Man, what a great interview. John was fantastic. I've never really heard anybody speak about like falling into that kind of rut, giving into those demons on the job, and then making out of it, getting your way out of it, and then teaching on it afterwards. It's just fascinating to me. The guy clearly is going to help a lot of people, going to help a lot of first responders, which, is desperately needed in this community. So thanks to John for coming on. Check him out. It's all in the show notes. Support him the best you can. Thank you for all the 5-star reviews, guys. We're up to 700 or 4.9 stars, but there's some haters in there, but 700 reviews on Apple Podcasts. Please go there if you haven't. If you love the show, but you can't support financially, I totally get it. That's fine. The show is there for everybody to listen to regardless. But what you could do, what is free, is going to Apple Podcasts and giving it 5 stars, and I truly appreciate it, guys. So thank you for joining us, and I will see you next week.